All right, so last time, last video, I showed you guys the front brake lines setup that I was going with and finished. And then I showed you how I brought it to the back. I couldn't complete the back because I did not have didn't have the flex lines to go from the hard line that comes out on the driver's side to the flex lines to the calipers on either side. So I have gotten the flex lines, and so what I did was I ordered a set of stainless steel flexible lines from hotpart.com, which is the same stainless lines that I got on the front. So it's J&M. Hold on, I will find sticker. Maybe not. Thought I had this sticker. You know what? Never mind. I think it's J&M products. Hotpart.com. They're in like San Luis Obispo, California. They build a bunch of like brake line stuff for Mustangs, Camaros, and some other stuff. So I ordered those, and now when I got them, I thought I was just going to be able to bolt them on and then just run the hard line to it, because the one side, which is the driver's side on the Mustang, has a T on it. It has this double, it's right here, which is, anyway. But it wouldn't work because if you look at the way that the hard line is run, this is the hard line here, it actually on the Mustang puts it out this way, because the body of the Mustang, I believe, it's much wider, and so the unibody comes out to here where the brake line actually goes and attaches to, and the hard line then comes and meets it. And that's not going to work on this, because this chassis is much narrower, because it's not unibody, it's body on frame. So I had to figure out a solution to the problem. Now, in hindsight, I should have ordered some lines, some more universal type fittings and lines that I could just make my own flex line and make it meet wherever I wanted to. Hindsight. But I wanted to use these brake lines. So what I did was, and this is a solution that you can do as well, I just reversed the side. So I took the driver's side one and I put it on the passenger side, and I put the passenger side one on the driver's side. Now when you do that, you can't use the T anymore unless you bring, in your application, you bring the hard line down to meet it from the driver's side or the passenger side to this side and then split it off. I didn't do that because I had already brought my hard line down to meet it over here. So what I did was I capped off with a plug the one side of the T, used the one side that was going to meet up best. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. And then I ordered another T, you can see it here, just like the one they give you for the front. Probably can see it best down here. You can see the T in there. So here comes my hard line. Actually, my hard line, which you can see runs down the frame rail, through that little pocket there, up this vertical tube here, crosses over, and then comes into the T, which is going to feed this one. And then you can see this, it's kind of a hard line to a stainless steel flex line that brings it to this. I drilled a hole and I put a nutsert. It comes with this like the special tool that you put the fitting in, and then you kind of almost like a rivet gun. It kind of flares out the fitting, and it's a threaded nut. So now I can just bolt that line in place. Take the other line up over this brace here, this little X brace. Over here, I put a coupler in. This is one of the couplers from the kit. They give you a couple of these different ones. I don't know if it's because they just give it to you so you have them. And then I took another hard line, and then I met it up here. I capped it off. This purple piece also comes in the kit, which I only used one of them, and that was here. And then I bought a cap, a little plug to put in there, 3/16 plug. All this stuff is 3/16, so you know, it's not, you can't, what's difficult about it is O'Reilly and the regular auto parts stores around, they don't carry 3/16. They carry like 1/4 inch and up. They don't carry 3/16. I don't know why. And then you can see here, this is the same deal. It's weird how well it fits on the reverse side. It goes right around the shock, almost like it was designed to do this, but it wasn't. It was actually designed to go this way. So it's kind of odd, but yeah, it worked. And that's how it's gonna be for now. I haven't filled it with fluid yet to see. I gotta tighten all the fittings. I wanna put some Teflon tape on some fittings. I like to do that. But yeah, there you go. Also, there's various different banjo bolts for these calipers, because these calipers are on many different Fords. So there's a few different banjo bolts. For some reason, late model restoration supply only sent me one banjo bolt, or I somehow lost a banjo bolt, so I had to order one. Unfortunately, you can only buy them in pairs, and no one else carries the length that you need around. And I needed you can see this fitting here is pretty thick. So the regular ones that they have at some of the auto parts stores are not long enough. They're like 1 millimeter or too short. Anyway, that's it for rear brakes. Now, then you move on to electrical. Electrical is where it gets fun and exciting. So I got the Ron Francis wiring, which is this manual that comes with it. And it's pretty much a chassis harness, because they obviously do not know what engine you're running. So chassis harness, and then I'm using the EFI harness out of the Mustang. And so you start to get the dash. Here's the pre-cut dash. And you first start with putting the fuse block in. So that's pretty easy. Put the fuse block right here right next to the pedal assembly. I got my brake light switch wired. I got, you got to put these LED flasher units in and then ground them. You got to ground the fuse block here. You don't need, there's one plug on here that's hot rod only. I'm not going to run a clutch safety switch for now. So I just put a wire that is looping it. I might run one later. I don't know. We'll see. You got to put the inertia switch in here. So it's different. Inertia switch, if you look in the manual of the Factory 5, it's using the Mustang one, which looks like this. And they have you mount it in the back. This one's different because the chassis harness is different. So I mounted it up here next to it, which I kind of like that a little bit better than in the back. I always thought it was odd that they put that in the back of a Mustang like that. And then the chassis harness routes the dash. There's actually a lot of space because the dash is angled like this. So there's a lot of space back there for wiring and stuff like that. Now, here's the tricky part. The EFI harness is the trick. Because the EFI harness has stuff you don't need. But you don't know what you don't need, because if you're like me, you've never done this before. So there are companies, they would call it a wire diet. There's wirediet.com, and then there's another. Now, I don't think this is common anymore, but Wire Diet said they would take your harness and strip it down with all the bare stuff. Ron Francis has another company that, if you look at the threads of different forms, says they'll do that, but then when I asked them, they said they don't do it anymore. They'll just sell you a basic kit of EFI stuff, all the fittings, and then you have to put it all together. I don't know. To me, that sounds, and it's expensive. It's like $900 or something like that. More than the actual chassis harness itself. So I'm not doing that. I might do the Wire Diet guy. He hasn't responded yet to me, so I don't know. If not, I'm just gonna run it like this. I'm just gonna run it how it is, hook up what I need to hook up, learn on this one what I don't need, and then for the next one, I might Wire Diet it. So here you go. This panel, you gotta put this panel in. This is the extension for the firewall, and that has the oval cutout for, you can see the grommet here. And that kind of, what's nice about that is that kind of positions the wiring harness, where before you're kind of like, oh, I don't know where this goes. Now, if you don't run a heater defroster, there's a picture in the manual of them putting the engine computer in here. I would like to do that, but I'm running a heater defroster and I can't do that. So I have to put mine under the pedal box, which is becoming quite a pain because they tell you to use the stock bracket, and the stock bracket doesn't fit flat against anything. You also have to run this control, the constant control they call it. I haven't looked up what it does yet, but you need it, and it has this really important looking plug, so you need that. This square plug connects to the engine, so I'm going to figure out how to mount it here, kind of like that, I think. And then the engine square connector connects to that. And then I don't know if you need any of these other pieces. I can't remember what they do. This is for the starter here. And then this is for the alternator. And yeah, so there is that for now. That's what I got for wiring. I'll give an update for wiring, maybe in the next video. I don't know, maybe this will be one whole video. We'll see. We'll see how far I get today. But yeah, that's it for now. All right, let me show you guys. I'm pretty much at a point with the electrical that this is where I believe I have to stop before I put the engine and transmission in, because it's hard to know what connects to what and what's going to work and what's not going to work. So, like I said previously, I have the Ron Francis chassis wiring kit. Now, this might help if you're watching this and you want to determine, because there isn't a lot of information about a lot of this stuff. So I feel like parts of my videos are just me explaining when I looked at this stuff, what I thought it was and what it actually is in reality. And so same thing with this wiring kit. So the chassis wiring kit comes in this box. It's like that. Ron Francis. It is a chassis wiring kit. It has a chassis harness, which starts over there with the fuse box, and then you run it pretty much over to the dash. And then it has a dash harness, which is what this is, which connects to all the gauges. There's also 2 wires that come over to connect to the EFI stuff. Then it has a rear harness, which comes over here and connects and goes out and down the transmission tunnel, comes out in the back, and then connects to everything in the rear pretty much. So the fuel pump, fuel sending unit, driver's tail light, passenger tail light, and the license plate light. That's that stuff. Then it also has a front harness, which looks odd in the picture. It looks like they bring it out of this hole. That hole you cannot bring it out of because that is for the clutch cable. This hole, if you looked, when I got my plate, it did not have a hole in it here. When I looked at the back, it had a hole. So I drilled that out. It's an 1 3/8", I think. Drilled it out with a hole saw. Ran the front harness, this is the front harness. Ran the front harness down to the front, which is horns, driver tail light, or driver headlight, passenger headlight, fan, cooling switch, and so there's radiator stuff. Yeah. So what that doesn't include EFI harness, O2 sensor harnesses, anything you might need from the chassis harness, pretty much not there. Oh, there's also a sending unit. So a sending unit cable comes up, and I have it drooped over here, but it connects to the certain things on the engine. And that's part of the Ron Francis. So you, depending on your engine, drivetrain, power plant, whatever you want to call it, have to tie in your EFI harness now to that harness. And according to the instructions, that's this. This is connects to the power for the EFI, and this is the crank. I'm assuming crank position sensor, maybe. So you gotta send these to, because they're powered, you gotta send them to the EFI harness, I think. And then somehow tie in the fuel pump relay to this as well. That's the way I think it is. I have to figure it out. There's more to be done. Now, so I've mounted the ECM, EEC, whatever you want to call this, power train controller, any of that. And this, which is the constant control relay, which according to the wiring diagrams in my shop manual controls fuel injectors and a whole bunch of other electrical things on the engine. Ties into that ties into the computer. And then I have then I ran this wiring harness because this is going to be like mass airflow sensor, and I'm assuming some more things on the engine. And then this harness here looks like it plugs in to this and runs down to the O2 sensors. And so this is the transmission harness. So this is like certain things there. You also have a transmission plug that comes for the speed sensor, which is this. So really, you just got to start laying it out and putting it in. And I think if I was going to suggest the order of which you should do it, it should be start with the chassis harness. That's like the foundation of the wiring harness, and then work your way out from there. And then depending on what, now everybody suggests the wire diet for the harness. Problem is, I don't know what I'm going to need and what I'm not going to need. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to put the engine transmission in. I'm going to get it hooked up and running, and plug in what as minimum as I need, and then see what. Now I probably at that point might not be able to take the wiring harness back out. I don't know. I also don't know what I need from the chassis harness. That's the other problem, the old chassis donor harness, because I think there's plugs that plug in to each other. I think, maybe, we'll see. Anyway, that's where I've gone with the electrical. That's it right now for the electrical. And now what I'm going to do is prepare to put the engine and transmission in, and also before that I'm going to put the trunk aluminum in, because I believe that like these pieces, the back here, those pieces over there, go and cover all this up. So I believe they wanted you to leave this open so that you could have access to it while you put so that you could have access to it, and then you can put your trunk aluminum in. So that's what I'm doing next. And then I'm going to be cleaning my donor engine and transmission, seeing how clean I can get them. I'm going to replace some seals on them, and then I'm going to install them in the car. So that's the lineup. But that's it right now for electrical system. And that took me a couple days to mount that. And here's another thing to keep in mind. Like, it doesn't have to be perfected at the time you mount it. Like how it's mounted and if that's going to work or not. Just mount it. Mount it, get a position for it. I picked under there. Now it's a little off to me. I want to like fix it up. I also don't know. I want to see how to tuck that wiring harness up so that you don't see it when you're in the passenger seat, and maybe you only see the ECU. I might even make a panel that goes across it that covers it so that you don't see it, because I don't know, we'll see. When I hang around some of these Porsche race cars at the Experience Center where I work, when I'm staring at the race cars, they just put it in the most easily accessible place to get to it. And a lot of times that's in the passenger seat, and this car has a passenger seat. So I'm like, well, where could you get it? And surprisingly, when you put the dash on, I know I mentioned this before, I think, there's a lot of, like, you can see the flat dash runs up to about here. So there's a pretty good amount of space back here where you could tuck some stuff up. Not enough, obviously, to put my computer, but I'm thinking like if I go a little deeper, tuck this in a little bit more, I might be able to get it to be a little bit more. But right now, you know what? I want easy access to all this stuff because I think I'm gonna be having to mess with it. So that's where it's going right now. And this might be temporary. I might make a box. I don't know if I really like the stock bracket. It's plastic, it seems old. I might make an aluminum box for it. We'll see. Anyway, just mount it and move on. Perfect it later. Like, that's my only suggestion. Don't waste time. You waste all this time on like trying to, well, I know maybe I do. You waste all this time on trying to perfect like the first mounting of it, when it's like, no, I just need to get this thing kind of going so I can see, and then come up with a little bit better solution later after I figure it out. Like, I'd like to make this a little bit more, you know, firm. I might make just a little mount piece for it that elevates it up off that a little bit, off the box. We'll see. I don't know. I got some other little projects I need to do anyway, so in the meantime. Anyway, yep, that's it. Just figured I'd give my explanation as to the electrical and why I did things the way I did things and how I got here, you know, ready for the next step. So there you go.